The heart monitor flatlined, and Margaret Bennett's family watched in horror as doctors declared her dead. But in that moment, the 70-year-old grandmother found herself enveloped in a warm, living light unlike anything she'd ever experienced. There, she claims, she came face to face with Jesus himself. What happened next would shake Margaret to her core. Jesus revealed visions of Earth's potential futures and delivered a message so unexpected, so crucial, that it would propel this ordinary woman on an extraordinary mission. At the center of it all, tech visionary Elon Musk and the choices that could shape humanity's fate. Margaret Bennett's life was a tapestry of simple joys and familiar routines. At 70 years old, she found contentment in the quiet rhythm of her days, filled with the warmth of family and the comfort of her modest home. Each morning, Margaret would wake early, savoring the stillness as she sipped her coffee and watched the sun rise over her well-tended garden. Her hands, weathered by time but still nimble, would tend to her prized roses, their vibrant blooms a testament to her patient care. Afternoons often found Margaret surrounded by the laughter of her grandchildren. She delighted in baking cookies with them, sharing stories of her youth, and marveling at their boundless energy. Her daughter, Sarah, would drop by after work, filling Margaret's home with updates about her job and the latest family news. These moments were the heartbeat of Margaret's world, a world she never imagined would be shaken to its core. It was on a crisp autumn evening when the first signs of trouble appeared. Margaret had been preparing dinner, humming softly to herself, when a sudden wave of dizziness washed over her. She gripped the kitchen counter, her vision blurring as an unfamiliar pain bloomed in her chest. Sarah, who had arrived moments earlier, noticed her mother's distress and rushed to her side. What followed was a whirlwind of panic and urgency. Sarah's voice, tight with fear, echoed through the house as she called for an ambulance. Margaret's grandchildren, sensing the gravity of the situation, huddled together in the living room, their wide eyes filled with worry. The wail of sirens pierced the evening calm, and within minutes, paramedics were guiding Margaret onto a stretcher. The ride to the hospital was a blur of flashing lights and concerned voices. Margaret, drifting in and out of consciousness, could hear the urgent tones of the medical team working around her. Sarah held her hand tightly, whispering words of encouragement that seemed to come from far away. At the hospital, doctors and nurses swarmed around Margaret, their movements quick and purposeful. Machines beeped incessantly, monitoring her failing heart. Sarah and the rest of the family arrived, their faces etched with concern as they huddled in the waiting room, clinging to hope with each passing minute. Hours ticked by, each one more tense than the last. The doctors' expressions grew increasingly grim as they fought to stabilize Margaret's condition. Her body, once so full of life and warmth, now lay still and pale on the hospital bed. The family gathered around her, their whispered prayers filling the room with a desperate energy. Then, in a moment that would forever be etched in their memories, the steady beep of the heart monitor gave way to a single, unbroken tone. Time seemed to stand still as the doctor's words cut through the air. Time of death, 9:47 p.m. Margaret Bennett, beloved grandmother, mother, and friend, was gone. But as her family began to grapple with the overwhelming reality of loss, something extraordinary was about to unfold. For Margaret, the moment of her clinical death was not an ending, but a beginning. As the physical world faded away, she found herself on the threshold of an experience that would challenge everything she thought she knew about life, death, and the very nature of existence itself. In the blink of an eye, Margaret's world transformed. The sterile hospital surroundings vanished, replaced by a realm that defied earthly description. As she took in her new environment, a presence began to materialize before her, one so powerful and familiar that it made her heart race with anticipation. Could this really be happening? Was she truly about to come face to face with the divine? Margaret found herself enveloped in a warm, living light that pulsed with an energy unlike anything she had ever experienced. This wasn't the harsh glare of hospital fluorescence or even the warm glow of sunlight. No, this light seemed to embrace her very soul, filling her with a profound sense of peace and comfort. As her consciousness adjusted to this new reality, Margaret realized she was no longer tethered to her physical body or the hospital room where her family grieved. The sensations that washed over her were overwhelming yet soothing. Colors more vibrant than any she had seen on Earth danced around her, creating patterns and forms that seemed to shift and change with her thoughts. Soft, melodic sounds echoed in the distance, reminiscent of the most beautiful music she had ever heard, yet somehow more pure and resonant. Margaret felt weightless, as if she were floating in a sea of tranquility. As she acclimated to this extraordinary environment, Margaret became aware of a magnetic pull drawing her towards something, or someone, of immense significance. The anticipation built within her, a mixture of awe and curiosity propelling her forward. The light around her intensified, and she sensed she was approaching the source of the love and warmth that permeated this realm. Suddenly, a figure began to take shape before her. At first, it was just a silhouette, but as Margaret drew closer, features became clearer. She gasped as recognition dawned upon her. There, radiating an aura of pure love and compassion, stood Jesus. His presence was both familiar and awe-inspiring, evoking memories of childhood prayers and a lifetime of faith, yet far surpassing anything Margaret had ever imagined. As she stood in the presence of Jesus, Margaret felt an overwhelming sense of acceptance and love. It was as if every worry, every fear, every doubt she had ever harbored melted away in the warmth of his gaze. She noticed that Jesus didn't speak to her with words, but rather communicated through a resonating presence that filled her entire being. In that moment, Margaret understood that she was about to receive a message of profound importance. The atmosphere around them seemed to shift, and Margaret sensed that this encounter was more than just a comforting welcome to the afterlife. There was an urgency, a sense of purpose that began to well up within her. As she looked into Jesus' eyes, she knew that her journey beyond death's door wasn't an ending, but the beginning of something far greater than she could have ever anticipated. Margaret stood on the threshold of a revelation that would shake the foundations of her understanding about life, death, and humanity's greater purpose. Little did she know, she was about to receive a message so crucial and unexpected that it would propel her on an extraordinary mission, one that would bridge the gap between the spiritual realm and the world she had left behind. Standing before Jesus, Margaret thought she had reached the end of her journey. But as his eyes met hers, she realized this was only the beginning. What revelation awaited that could possibly overshadow the miracle of meeting the divine? Jesus' demeanor radiated a profound sense of love and compassion, yet there was an undercurrent of urgency in his presence. His eyes, filled with infinite wisdom, seemed to pierce through Margaret's very soul. Without uttering a word, Jesus conveyed a message of such weight and importance that Margaret felt her entire being tremble with the gravity of it. As the significance of the moment washed over her, Jesus revealed that he had entrusted Margaret with a crucial message for humanity. The realization slowly dawned on her. She would have to leave this realm of peace and return to the world she had left behind. Margaret's heart filled with a mixture of honor and trepidation at the enormity of the task before her. Initially, Margaret felt a deep resistance to the idea of leaving. The blissful warmth and unconditional love that surrounded her in this heavenly realm was unlike anything she had ever experienced. The thought of returning to the pain and struggles of earthly life seemed almost unbearable. She longed to stay in this perfect peace, basking in the divine presence that enveloped her. Yet, as Jesus continued to communicate with her, Margaret began to understand the critical nature of the message she was to deliver. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and she had been chosen to play a pivotal role in shaping the future. The weight of this responsibility both humbled and frightened her. As Margaret's resistance slowly melted away, replaced by a growing sense of purpose, Jesus began to show her visions of two potential futures for humanity. These vivid glimpses into what might come to pass left Margaret in awe of the power of human choice and the delicate balance between technology and spirituality. In one vision, Margaret saw a world where technology and faith worked together in harmony. People used advanced innovations to connect with one another on a deeper level, fostering understanding and compassion across the globe. The marvels of science were tempered by a strong moral compass, guided by spiritual principles that ensured the ethical use of these powerful tools. The other vision, however, painted a stark contrast. In this potential future, technology dominated every aspect of human life, creating a world of isolation and disconnection. People had become mere extensions of their devices, losing touch with their inner selves and the natural world around them. The absence of spiritual guidance had led to a society devoid of empathy and true human connection. As the visions faded, Jesus impressed upon Margaret that the future was not set in stone. There was still time for humanity to choose a path of light and connection rather than one of darkness and disconnection. The message she was to deliver would play a crucial role in guiding humanity towards a more positive future. Margaret's mind reeled with the implications of what she had seen and learned. As she prepared to return to the earthly realm, she knew that her life would never be the same. The ordinary grandmother she once was had been transformed into a messenger with an extraordinary purpose. With a mixture of determination and trepidation, Margaret braced herself for the challenges that lay ahead in sharing this divine message with a world that might not be ready to hear it. Margaret's vision shifted, and she found herself face to face with an unexpected figure, Elon Musk. The enigmatic tech mogul stood at a metaphorical crossroads, his presence both powerful and uncertain. Margaret instantly understood the significance of this image. Musk, a key player in shaping humanity's technological future, held immense influence over the path our species would take. As Margaret watched, two distinct paths materialized before Musk. One glowed with promise, while the other cast long, ominous shadows. The vision made it clear that Musk's decisions in the realms of artificial intelligence, space exploration, and neural technology would have far-reaching consequences for all of humanity. The first path revealed a world where technology enhanced human capabilities and fostered connection. Advanced AI systems worked alongside humans, solving complex problems and driving unprecedented scientific breakthroughs. Space exploration flourished, with sustainable colonies on Mars opening up new frontiers for human civilization. Neural interfaces allowed for direct brain-to-computer communication, revolutionizing education, healthcare, and interpersonal understanding. However, the second path painted a far darker picture. Unchecked AI development led to systems that outpaced human control, threatening jobs and societal stability. Space exploration became a means of escape for the wealthy few, leaving Earth's problems unresolved. Neural technology blurred the lines between human consciousness and digital realms, raising profound questions about privacy, free will, and the nature of humanity itself. Margaret's heart raced as she grasped the gravity of these potential futures. She saw how Musk's ventures in AI could either augment human intelligence or potentially supplant it. His SpaceX projects held the power to unite humanity in a common goal of multiplanetary existence or to further divide society along lines of privilege and access. Neuralink's brain-machine interfaces promised to heal neurological conditions, but also raised concerns about mental privacy and the potential for exploitation. The vision pulsed with urgency, highlighting the critical nature of the choices that lay ahead. Margaret realized that the decisions made by influential figures like Musk would ripple across generations, shaping the very fabric of human existence. The responsibility was immense, and the consequences of missteps could be catastrophic. As the crossroads faded from view, Jesus' presence enveloped Margaret once more. Without words, he conveyed the vital importance of guiding humanity towards responsible innovation. The message was clear. The future was not set in stone, but the window for positive influence was closing rapidly. Margaret felt the weight of her newfound purpose settle upon her. She understood that her role extended beyond simply sharing a vision. She was to be a voice of conscience, reminding humanity of the profound spiritual and ethical considerations that must guide technological advancement. As the divine encounter drew to a close, Margaret braced herself for the monumental task ahead. To bridge the gap between the spiritual wisdom she had received and the technological crossroads facing humanity. Margaret's eyes flew open, shattering the somber silence of the hospital room. Her family's grief turned to shock, then joy. But their relief would soon give way to confusion. How could they reconcile the woman they knew with the one who had seemingly peered beyond the veil of mortality? The scene erupted into chaos as Margaret gasped for air, her body jerking upright. Machines blared urgent alarms and medical staff rushed in, their faces a mix of disbelief and professional urgency. Margaret's daughter, Sarah, clasped her mother's hand, tears of joy streaming down her face. The grandsons, wide-eyed and trembling, clung to each other, unsure whether to laugh or cry. As the initial shock subsided, Margaret began to speak. Her voice, though weak, carried an undercurrent of urgency. She spoke of a realm beyond imagination, of Jesus himself, and of a message crucial to humanity's future. The words tumbled out in a rush, painting vivid pictures of divine encounters and technological crossroads. Sarah listened, her expression shifting from relief to concern. She exchanged worried glances with the doctor, who was methodically checking Margaret's vital signs. "Mom," Sarah said gently, "you've been through a traumatic experience. It's normal to have vivid dreams or hallucinations in these situations." Margaret shook her head emphatically. "No, Sarah, you don't understand. This wasn't a dream. It was real. More real than anything I've ever experienced." She turned to her grandsons, her eyes pleading for belief. "Boys, I saw Jesus. He showed me the future, two possible futures, and Elon Musk. He's at the center of it all." The mention of the tech mogul's name drew skeptical looks from the medical staff. The doctor cleared his throat, addressing Margaret in a calm, professional tone. "Mrs. Bennett, what you're describing is not uncommon in near-death experiences. The brain can create incredibly vivid scenarios when deprived of oxygen. Rest assured, it's a natural phenomenon." But Margaret wouldn't be dissuaded. With each passing moment, her voice grew stronger, more insistent. She described the warmth of the divine light, the profound sense of peace, and the weight of the message she'd been entrusted to deliver. Her family listened, torn between concern for her mental state and a growing sense that something truly extraordinary had occurred. As Margaret continued to recount her experience, small details began to resonate with her loved ones. She mentioned conversations she couldn't have overheard, events that had transpired while she was clinically dead. Sarah's skepticism began to waver, replaced by a cautious wonder. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The initial disbelief gave way to a tense anticipation. Margaret's unwavering conviction, the clarity of her recollections, and the urgency in her voice hinted at something beyond mere hallucination. Her family and the medical staff found themselves grappling with a possibility that challenged their understanding of life and death. As the hours passed, it became clear that Margaret's experience had profoundly changed her. The message she carried weighed heavily on her, driving her with a sense of purpose that both inspired and unsettled those around her. She spoke of humanity standing at a crossroads, of the need to guide technological progress with spiritual wisdom. Margaret's return from death's door was just the beginning. As she prepared to leave the hospital, she faced a world that might not be ready for her message. The challenges ahead were daunting, but Margaret was determined. She had been given a second chance at life, and with it, a mission that would shake the foundations of faith and science alike. As Margaret stepped out of the hospital, the world around her seemed to pulse with an unseen energy. Little did she know, her message was about to ripple through her community in ways she could never have imagined. What inexplicable phenomena would soon convince even the most hardened skeptics that Margaret's experience was more than just a near-death hallucination? In the days following her return, strange occurrences began to plague Margaret's small town. Lights flickered without explanation, casting eerie shadows in homes and businesses. Residents reported hearing inexplicable sounds in the dead of night, whispers and echoes that seemed to carry fragments of Margaret's divine message. Those who encountered Margaret found themselves plagued by vivid dreams, their subconscious minds grappling with the implications of her otherworldly experience. Despite the growing signs that something extraordinary was unfolding, Margaret faced an uphill battle in sharing her message. Many in her community met her claims with skepticism and ridicule. At the local community center, where Margaret had once led book club discussions, she now found herself the subject of whispered conversations and sidelong glances. Some dismissed her story as the ramblings of a confused elderly woman, while others suggested more cynical motives for her sudden spiritual awakening. Yet Margaret remained undeterred. With each passing day, her conviction grew stronger. She spoke to anyone who would listen: family members, neighbors, even strangers at the grocery store. Her voice, once soft and hesitant, now carried a quiet strength as she recounted her encounter with Jesus and the visions of humanity's potential futures. As weeks passed, something remarkable began to happen. Those who had initially scoffed at Margaret's claims found themselves inexplicably drawn to her story. The sincerity in her eyes, the unwavering certainty in her voice, and the profound impact her message had on those who truly listened began to chip away at the wall of disbelief. Word of Margaret's experience spread through the community like wildfire. Neighbors shared her story over backyard fences, teenagers discussed it in hushed tones at school, and local church groups debated the theological implications of her divine encounter. The strange phenomena surrounding Margaret only added fuel to the growing intrigue. It wasn't long before Margaret's story caught the attention of a local reporter. Initially approaching the tale with skepticism, the journalist found herself captivated by Margaret's quiet conviction and the mounting evidence of unexplained events in the town. The resulting article, published in the local newspaper, struck a delicate balance between journalistic integrity and the undeniable intrigue of Margaret's account. The publication of Margaret's story marked a turning point. What had once been dismissed as the delusions of a grandmother who had briefly crossed death's threshold now became a topic of serious discussion. The article's reach extended far beyond the small town, catching the eye of larger media outlets and sparking debates in online forums. As Margaret's message began to resonate with a wider audience, she felt a mix of relief and trepidation. The weight of her divine mission pressed heavily upon her, but with each person who listened and considered her words, she felt a step closer to fulfilling her purpose. Little did Margaret know, her journey was far from over. The ripples of her near-death experience were about to become waves, carrying her message to shores she never imagined it would reach. Margaret's heart raced as she unfolded the letter, her fingers trembling slightly. The return address was unfamiliar, but the words inside would soon become etched in her memory. "Dear Margaret," it began, "your story has changed my life." The letter was from Maria, a young woman who had been struggling with her faith in an increasingly technology-driven world. Maria's words painted a vivid picture of how Margaret's experience had reignited her spiritual path and given her hope for the future. As Margaret read on, she realized her message was resonating far beyond her small town. Stories of lives transformed began pouring in from across the country. People wrote of renewed faith, of finding purpose in a world they once felt disconnected from. Some shared their own brushes with the divine, experiences they had kept hidden for fear of ridicule. Margaret's courage in speaking out had given them the strength to share their own stories. Yet as her influence grew, so too did the strange occurrences surrounding her. The flickering lights and unexplained sounds intensified, now accompanied by sudden temperature drops and objects moving of their own accord. Margaret couldn't shake the feeling that these phenomena were more than mere coincidence. They felt like pushback, a spiritual resistance to the change her message was inspiring. The debate surrounding Margaret's experience reached fever pitch. Technology forums buzzed with discussions about the intersection of faith and innovation. Scientists argued over the nature of consciousness and the possibility of life after death. Religious leaders grappled with the implications of Margaret's divine encounter for their own teachings. At the heart of it all was the question of humanity's future. Margaret's vision of two possible paths, one of harmony between technology and spirituality, the other of disconnection and isolation, sparked intense dialogue. People began to examine their relationship with technology more closely, questioning whether their devices were tools for connection or barriers to genuine human interaction. As the conversations unfolded, Margaret felt a growing sense of anticipation. She realized that her near-death experience was just the first step on a much longer journey. The message she had been entrusted with was taking root, challenging people to reconsider their priorities in the direction of human progress. Margaret's family, once skeptical, now rallied around her. Her grandsons, tech-savvy and curious, began researching Elon Musk's projects, looking for ways to align technological advancement with spiritual awareness. They created online forums to discuss ethical tech development, drawing participants from around the globe. With each passing day, Margaret understood more clearly that her purpose extended far beyond simply sharing her story. She was becoming a bridge between two worlds, the spiritual and the technological, that many had thought incompatible. As she prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead, Margaret felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that the ripples of change she had set in motion were only the beginning of something far greater than she could have ever imagined. Margaret's story, once confined to a small town, was about to reach the ears of the very man whose decisions could shape humanity's technological future. As news of her divine message spread, it caught the attention of Elon Musk himself. The tech mogul, known for his ambitious projects and forward-thinking vision, found himself intrigued by Margaret's account and the implications it held for the future of innovation. A movement inspired by Margaret's message began to take root across the nation. People from all walks of life, from Silicon Valley engineers to Midwest farmers, found themselves drawn to her vision of a future where technology and spirituality coexisted in harmony. Online forums buzzed with discussions about ethical tech development, while local community groups organized meetings to explore ways of integrating spiritual awareness into their daily digital lives. As society grappled with the implications of Margaret's vision, a palpable tension arose between those who embraced her message and those who remained skeptical. Tech companies found themselves under increased scrutiny, with shareholders and consumers alike demanding greater transparency and ethical considerations in product development. The conversation shifted from merely what could be done with technology to what should be done. Margaret's experience sparked heated debates in academic circles, corporate boardrooms, and family dinner tables alike. Neuroscientists delved deeper into the nature of consciousness, while theologians re-examined ancient texts in light of her revelations. Tech entrepreneurs began incorporating mindfulness practices into their work environments, recognizing the need for balance in an increasingly digital world. The anticipation grew as people wondered how this shift in perspective could influence the trajectory of technological advancement. Would AI development take a more empathetic approach? Could space exploration become a unifying goal for humanity, rather than a competition between nations? The possibilities seemed both exciting and daunting. Gradually, a change began to take hold. People approached technological advancements with a newfound sense of responsibility and spiritual awareness. Companies introduced ethical review boards, considering the long-term implications of their innovations on human connection and well-being. Schools integrated courses on digital ethics alongside coding classes, preparing the next generation to navigate the complex intersection of technology and humanity. As Margaret watched these changes unfold, she felt a profound sense of purpose. Her journey from a near-death experience to becoming a messenger of divine wisdom had set in motion a transformation she could never have imagined. The ripples of her experience had become waves, washing over society and reshaping the landscape of human progress. Yet, Margaret knew that this was just the beginning. The choices that lay ahead would determine whether humanity would embrace a future of connection and compassion or succumb to isolation and division. As she prepared to share her story on a global stage, Margaret felt the weight of her responsibility more than ever. The world was listening, and the time had come to bridge the gap between the spiritual and the technological, guiding humanity towards a future that honored both innovation and the human spirit. Margaret Bennett's journey from a near-death experience to becoming a catalyst for global change serves as a powerful testament to the impact one person can have on the world. Her divine encounter and subsequent message sparked a revolution in how humanity approaches technology and spirituality. The ripples of her experience touched lives across the globe, from Silicon Valley boardrooms to small-town community centers. As we reflect on Margaret's story, we're reminded that the future is not set in stone. The choice between technology as a tool for connection or division remains ongoing, with each innovation presenting both opportunity and challenge. Margaret's vision of two potential futures continues to resonate, urging us to approach technological advancement with mindfulness and spiritual awareness. In the end, Margaret's experience leaves us with a profound question: what role will we play in shaping humanity's future? As we stand at this technological crossroads, her story challenges each of us to consider our own impact. Will we use our skills, our voices, and our choices to guide technology towards fostering genuine human connection? The power to influence our collective path forward lies not just with tech moguls and spiritual leaders, but with each one of us.